I could feel the weight of everyone's judgmental gazes on me. In case you haven't heard, Orthodox Catholic schools and same-sex kissing don't exactly go hand in hand. As I made my way to my classroom, spotting the principal waiting for me, I desperately tried to formulate a plan. Could I perhaps dive into the janitor's closet and make a new life in there, forever hidden from prying eyes? Or maybe, just maybe, someone would inadvertently stuff me into their locker. It was hard to breathe. I felt like my life was about to come crashing down. So how did a seemingly obedient, intelligent, and sweet Catholic girl like me end up engaged in an unexpected encounter of the kissing kind with another girl at a Catholic school? Well, first of all, let's get your mind out of the gutter. There were no uniforms or hidden cameras involved. I grew up in the Deep South, you know, that sweet tea-loving, often conservative part of the country where homophobia was deeply ingrained. My parents were ultra-religious, the kind who prohibited Halloween celebrations and insisted that no atheist friends should be allowed within a 2-mile radius of our house. While all the other girls around me were developing crushes on boys at an early age, I stood on the sidelines, often exclaiming, "Did you all conveniently forget about lice? You know, that thing we were all worried about just 5 minutes ago?" By the time high school rolled around, the romantic drama was in full swing. Couples were making out in the hallways, stairwells, and even in classrooms. And to make matters worse, our school was adorned with statues of Jesus on the cross. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, Quinn, seemingly engaging in sins while being watched over by those crucifixes. Jesus, forgive me for the transgressions I'm cooking up with Brad behind the bleachers. I mostly kept my distance from it all, primarily because the nuns were absolutely terrifying. Did I really want to risk drawing their wrath just for the chance to exchange words with one of the not-so-bright boys in my class? Absolutely not. At least that was my stance until Joseph entered the scene. Joseph, the newcomer, had a peculiar effect on me. Every time I laid eyes on him, I felt a whirlwind of emotions. His beautiful curls and delightful sense of humor were enchanting. I couldn't help but wonder if getting closer to him might help me understand this whole crushed phenomenon. Then, one day, fate brought us together at the mall. We strolled around for hours, window shopping, sharing life stories, and sharing laughter. My gaze was fixated on his face, despite his occasional silliness. A strange warmth enveloped me. Could it be that he was my crush? I daydreamed about a future where we get married and escape to a cabin in the woods on the outskirts of town, indulging in fast food and occasional mischief against the nuns. Naturally, we'd have a dog, although it would undoubtedly favor me over Joseph. It all seemed so perfect. But just as I was lost in my daydream, reality came crashing in. I witnessed the entire scene unfold in agonizing slow motion. Joseph's hand gently landed on my shoulder, followed by the classic leaning gesture. His lips inched closer to mine at an excruciatingly slow pace. It felt like there should have been an intense soundtrack playing in the background. Yet there was an unsettling feeling. Something wasn't quite right. I glanced at his lips, and to my dismay, they appeared rather moist and unappealing. Were all boys' lips like that, or was he just unusually greasy? His stubble sent shivers down my spine. All I could think was, abort. Abort? Dive into the fountain. Punch him in the face. Anything to avoid this. I questioned why people even pursued such encounters. But against my better judgment, I gave in, and oh boy, it turned out to be a dreadful decision. The kiss felt like two slugs were either engaged in a bizarre mating ritual or attempting to annihilate each other on our faces. What was the point of it all? When he finally pulled away, I swear I had an urge to hurl my food court pretzel at him. He smiled at me with what seemed like an attempt at suavity, but all I saw was a face I wanted to pummel. He leaned in for another round, but this time I pushed him away. Laughing with him, going for walks, and merely gazing at him were all enjoyable, but I had absolutely no desire to repeat that kissing experience. This pattern continued for a few weeks. We'd have a great time together, and then the inevitable would occur. He'd lean in for a kiss. Each time, I watched in abject horror, as if someone were about to stab me. One day, I couldn't bear it any longer. I pushed him away and confessed that I didn't enjoy kissing him. You might think he'd respond with something like, "That's perfectly fine. You're still awesome. Let's go grab some mozzarella sticks." But no, his response was far from measured or logical. Instead, he abruptly stood up and shouted, What are you, a lesbian? Nothing quite compares to being screamed at in the deep south. I wondered why he didn't just tie me to a stake and set me on fire while he was at it. I reiterated my refusal, but as I walked home, a nagging question lingered in my mind. Am I a lesbian? Like Nora or some other famous lesbian? I mean, I checked one of the main boxes. I didn't find kissing boys appealing at all, so I embarked on my quest to explore my feelings for girls. It felt like every Jesus statue in the school was fixated on me, as if they somehow knew what I was about to do. Rumors swirled about a girl in my class, Reagan. When the gossip started, Reagan had become an outcast, so I had to be discreet, or people would talk. One day, I took a leap and messaged Reagan, inviting her to join me at the movies. She met me there, and after the film, we sat in the lobby and shared a meal. I kept repeating to myself, this is just an experiment, just a test. You don't even like girls. But her hair was undeniably lovely, her eyes sparkled, and she smelled delightful. Suddenly, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I realized I was a lesbian. Reagan made me laugh, and I impulsively placed my hand on her leg. From that moment onward, things escalated rapidly. She began to lean in, and my heart threatened to burst out of my chest, ready to knock her out. Our lips met, but inside, I felt a hollowness, as if someone had scraped out my insides. As we pulled apart, tears welled up in my eyes. What was happening to me? I wanted to shake some sense into my bewildered brain. Reagan hadn't even had a chance to react to my tears because her terrified gaze was directed past me. I turned to my right and found Joseph standing there, his jaw hanging open like a fool. No, no, no. What derogatory term would he use now? Joseph quickly snapped a photo and dashed off, not before delivering a rude hand gesture over his shoulder. Such class. Reagan turned to see me crying, and when she leaned over to brush away my tears, I pushed her away. As I prepared for school the next day, I braced myself for what felt like my own impending funeral. Walking up the path to the building felt like a somber march to my own demise. It was as if I had a glaring neon sign above my head that proclaimed, "Target me. I'm a lesbian. Target me." Dirty looks from people abounded throughout the day. So much for empathy, right? To make matters worse, Reagan, the very person who had led me into this predicament, was nowhere to be found. Yes, you read that correctly. The girl who had pushed me into this battle had seemingly abandoned me to fight it alone. As I headed to my last period class, I spotted my principal waiting there, impatiently tapping her foot, her eyes ablaze with anger. If stares could kill, I would have disintegrated on the spot, leaving the janitor with quite a mess to clean up. It felt like a showdown in a Western film, except only one of us had a weapon, and it certainly wasn't me. I kept my gaze fixed on the floor as I entered her office. Even before I reached her desk, she barked, "My office, now." I wasn't sure if you could get expelled for kissing a girl, but apparently that was her intent. She showed me a picture that had circulated widely among the students. Yes, she referred to it as going viral. Please forgive me, but I couldn't help but find that amusing. The photo depicted Reagan and me right after the kiss, holding hands on the table. The principal launched into a lecture about how this behavior was unacceptable and what God would think. To be honest, all I could picture God thinking was, "Oh, Prairie, you poor, misunderstood soul. You're in quite a pickle." Even worse, she informed me that the picture was grounds for expulsion due to its alleged illegal content. Should I have told her that I didn't even enjoy kissing? Or should I have suggested that she take a look under the bleachers to find virtually every other student doing the same thing? She also mentioned that she intended to inform my parents. It felt like time to arrange my own funeral. Over the next few days, Reagan made several attempts to speak with me. I told her to go away, slamming my locker in her face and giving her the cold shoulder. I even went to the extent of blocking her on social media. Whatever label anyone wanted to put on me, I was certain I wasn't gay. At least I thought I wasn't. But then what was left? When my parents discovered that I had been caught holding hands with another girl, all hell broke loose. I lost my phone, the privilege to leave the house, and it felt like I had to recite Bible verses in my sleep. Then, one fateful night, a pebble hit my window. I peered out and saw Reagan standing there. It felt like something out of a Romeo and Juliet story. I helped her climb in because by that point, I was incredibly lonely and going stir-crazy being cooped up in my room all day. Reagan offered an apology, acknowledging how scary it was to be out in the open. I couldn't contain myself any longer. I blurted out that I wasn't a lesbian. I could see that my words stung her, but I felt terrible myself. Reagan began to climb back out the window, but I grabbed her hand and pulled her back in. I decided to share my truth. I told her I thought she was beautiful, funny, and attractive, but I didn't enjoy kissing her or anyone else. Relief washed over her face, and I had to restrain myself from lightly tapping her on the head to ensure she was truly paying attention. Was there something she wasn't telling me? I had just confessed that I didn't like kissing her. In response, Reagan asked if I might be asexual. I wasn't familiar with the term, but the word sexual in it made it sound rather repulsive. She kindly explained that being asexual simply meant not experiencing sexual attraction toward others. Every asexual person was unique, but many of them didn't particularly enjoy kissing, holding hands, or engaging in other intimate activities. Nonetheless, many still experienced romantic attraction. It felt like a choir of angels singing from the heavens. That's how it felt to me. I believe Reagan was perfect, but I didn't want to kiss her, and I doubted I ever would. So I assumed that was the end of it. I thanked Reagan and sent her on her way, but before she went out the window, she suggested that we could simply lie down and talk. So that's exactly what we did, just lying down and talking until morning.